and external focus, and a balanced approach is what we look at. And use a digital positioning tool to determine the appropriate position for a digital organization. So let's see for the intent and the context. Defining, planning, and implementing a strategy are cyclical activities which are performed in multiple areas of the organization at any time. Well, of course, there can always be different types of strategies. For example, if my organization is a geographically dispersed organization, or if it's a larger organization, so strategies can be implemented in different domains, different departments, or different functions. So they keep running in cycle, but what we have to ensure is that we are always aligned with the overall vision of the organization. Strategy is a formal, defined set of activities that follow the continual improvement model. With strategy cycles becoming shorter, the continual improvement model is increasingly relevant to strategy planning and implementation. Well, that is absolutely true. You may have seen this with such a vast experience. You may have understood that traditionally organizations used to have a long-term vision, what they would want to become 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, right? Things like that. But now the strategy cycles have become shorter. The vision that we want to achieve can always be shortened. So, for example, after 2 years, where do we see ourselves? That could be our vision statement for now. After 3 years, where do we see ourselves? So we can always run the strategy in the cycles based on the where we actually want to be. This section of the course guides you through the digital and IT strategy journey in alignment with the continual improvement model. This module relates to the first step of continual improvement model. What is the vision? Focuses on the following concepts: details and the type of digital disruption, factors that impact organizations, examples of digital maturity and positioning tools, and guidance on how to craft a compelling digital vision. So, of course, how we actually go ahead and create that vision considering different aspects is what we look at. So, for vision, a standard definition, it is defined aspiration of what an organization would like to become in future, right? So where do we see ourselves, or in future, where do we see the organization at what point or what position, which is my future state picture. This may include the future state picture of the problems that the organization will solve for consumers, and describe how consumers will interact with the organization's products and services, and what its people, their skills, and overall structure will look like. Well, of course, that's what we identify, that's what we understand as to how are we going to create value, how will the consumers be interacting with the service providers, what would be the skills that are required, what would be the overall structure. So basically defining or creating a future state picture. Three topics, one assignment which is there: digital disruptions, balanced strategic focus, and positioning tool for digital organizations. First one, digital disruptions. Now, like I said, that this is not a day-to-day disruption that we're talking about here. We're talking about a fundamental shift in an organization's operation caused by a new or changed internal or external factor. So because of any changes in the internal or the external factors, what has been the shift in the way of working of the organization? The organization's operation can be disrupted by factors of different nature: political, economic, social, technological, legal, or environmental, also called the pestle factors. This particular course focuses on disruptions triggered by the development of digital technology. So again, we can understand this from a perspective that there is new emerging technology that we see very often now. It's very frequent that we would see a new technology coming up. So how does these new technologies or new innovations essentially go ahead and affect the overall organization is what we understand here. Digital disruption occurs when a digital technology causes a fundamental shift in how any aspect of the organization's internal or external environment functions. So how does we Do we work within the internal or the external context, and how digital disruption can affect us? Successful organizations react quickly and appropriately to the disruptions. And most successful organizations are those that use digital technology to disrupt the environment and gain an advantage. Now, understand it this way. Based on the organization's attitude, there can be two types of organizations. They can either be the ones who react to the disruption. Once the disruption has happened, that is when they take actions or react towards that disruption. And then there is another type of organization, which is a disruptor itself, right? So two different types of attitudes: responding to disruption and being a disruptor. So that depends as to how aggressively organization follows the technology, how aggressively the organization is looking forward towards adopting new technology or creating that new technology is what we need to understand. Every organization may not have the same pace of adopting to the disruptions, but of course, once the disruptions have been proven successful, that is when we should go ahead and adopt that in the organization. Okay, digital disruption at three levels is what happens: ecosystem level disruption, industry or the market level disruption, and organizational disruption. These are the three main levels. At each of these levels, disruption can include increased customer or the market relevance or a greater operational excellence. So, of course, what are we working towards? Are we working towards achieving the customer excellence, the market or the customer excellence, or if we are working towards more of operational excellence? Now, how can we differentiate between these three levels? Now, take it as an example. When the cloud services were invented, it must have started at one organization, right? So any of the organization could be AWS, could be Google, could be Microsoft. They must have started it at one level, at an organizational level. Slowly and gradually, it got adopted by different industries within different markets. And now it has become the ecosystem level disruption, which is multiple markets and multiple industries are adopting it. So a small change at an organizational level can always have an impact on the ecosystem. And same way at the ecosystem level, when there's a disruption at the ecosystem level, it can always have an impact on the organization. It would become more clear once we move forward with other slides. But for now, we need to understand the vice versa impact. So the impact could be less at the organization, higher at the ecosystem, or the less at the ecosystem, higher at the organization, any which ways. Ecosystem level disruption is the one wherein multiple industries and multiple markets gets affected. Industry level disruption, for example, banking, insurance, healthcare, any related industries or one particular industry that gets affected based on digital technology, use of digital technology is what industry level disruption is. Then there is market level disruption. Market includes different market segments. For example, characteristics or need-based segmentation and are often broader than an industry. An example of a market is first-time buyers needing mortgage. Well, let this example be alone. I'll give you an example. You may have seen that there are nowadays technology which have face recognition. Now, based on a face recognition technology, you can always, for example, I wear glasses, right? So I can always go ahead and recognize my face, put my face onto a website. I can try different glasses just to see how different glasses looks at me. Similarly, the same technology can also be used in cosmetics. I can use makeup to freshen up my face and see how I look like, and based on what particular products and services that we may have, right? So one technology affecting multiple markets is what we can always look at. Whereas when it comes to industry, based on the use of online banking platform, the most of the banks were getting affected, or most of the banks had to adopt that particular technology. So one industry and one market. Markets are usually broader because it can be implemented into different industries or different markets as well. And organizational level disruption. So for example, most of the competitive organizations, the competitor organizations, they've started to use cloud technology, and my organization is still stuck on the legacy systems of those physical hardwares that we store information on. Now, because there is a chance, or there may be a possibility that I would lose on my competitive advantage, I had to change my way of working. So something which is changing at an organizational level is the organization level disruption. Like I said, this would become more clear. Ecosystem level disruption. Now, remember the keywords again. When they talk about ecosystem level disruption, they say it occurs when digital technology introduces a change that impacts organizations across multiple industries and markets. It also changes the way people, it also changes the way multiple ecosystem factors work together. Right. So what could be these factors? The political factors, economical factors, social factors, technological factors, legal factors, environmental factors, all these. But the keywords here to remember is when there is an impact on multiple industries and multiple markets. Example, the ability to use mobile and cloud-based technologies to connect individuals in virtual communities had resulted in a growth of the gig economy. Organizations such as Uber, Airbnb, Etsy, TaskRabbit provide a platform where people who need a service connect with people who can provide it. Well, of course, based on the cloud services, it can always have an impact, or it has already affected multiple industries and multiple markets. Organizations such as Uber, Airbnb, Etsy, they use this technology in order to connect people from the one who wants a service to the ones who provide the service. Similarly, there is industry disruption. This industry disruption occurs when a digital technology introduces a change that impacts a specific industry, such as manufacturing, finance, retail, or mining, or a group of related industries, such as ebooks and self-publishing has disrupted printing, publishing, and retail. Right. So, of course, when there is one particular industry getting affected or any related industries getting affected is what is considered as an industry level disruption. Now, how does these factors, the pestle factors, affect the disruption? For example, there is a new rule in India that for the emission of the pollution from the vehicles that we have, there is something called a BS6 engines that needs to be created by the manufacturers, right? So that affected the, of course, the manufacturing of those engines, that affected the car industry, that affected the vendors because the prices went up. So multiple factors getting affected because of one particular disruption, and a political factor involved in it. Industry disruption, furthermore, this organization choosing to disrupt an industry will do so in one of the two ways, as defined here. Using the technology to compete more effectively and grow the market share by either bankrupting or acquiring the competitors. Right. So, of course, they can use this approach as well, either by bankrupting the competitors or by acquiring those competitors, using the technology that are not easy to replicate, forcing competitors to invest in expensive technology to compete, using technology to improve the general perception of the industry, for example, reducing emissions, and finding ways to lessen the negative effect of the regulation without compromising efficiency or quality. So this can be one way of either acquiring or bankrupting its competitors. Furthermore, they say using the technology to spin off a new organization which sells new technology as products or services to its competitors. Well, of course, if they want to disrupt the industry, what they would do is, based on the innovations that they've done, based on the new technologies that they've created, they would have a separate organization, which would be, of course, a child organization to the main parent organization, and they would sell that technology to its competitors. Right. So that way as well, they can disrupt the market. Sorry. Market disruption is a market disruption occurs when digital technology introduces a change that impacts a particular market or the market segment. For example, cosmetic retailers could use technology to change how consumers research and buy cosmetics. So, like I said, the face recognition technology that we can always use, it can always affect a particular market of cosmetic retailers to identify how consumers research and buy their cosmetics. And then there is organizational disruption. They say the majority of the organization are not disruptive by nature. So, like I said, either we respond to a disruption or we are the disruptor. So, majority of the organization are non-disruptive by nature. So, they are more reactive. They have mature, well-established markets, products and services, and operations. However, disruptions to their markets and industry require them to recover or preserve their market position in the market. Well, of course, disruptions to their market or industry can always lead for them to change their ways of working as well, change their ways of using the technology as well. An organization will need to use the technology that has already disrupted its environment to continue to compete. It will need to disrupt its own organization. Well, of course, if we want to remain in the competition, we want to gain our competitive edge. So in those situations, we can always uh, change the ways of working or respond to the disruptions. They say in some cases, the organization may emerge as a leader and a new innovative culture that emerges that emerges enables it to disrupt the layers above it. So again, like I said, two different attitude of the organization, or two different culture of the organization. One organization which likes to respond to the disruptions, and another organization which likes to be a disruptor. They would innovate themselves. Example of an organizational disruption. A petrochemical company started using the test data from its laboratories to create a statistical performance and emission forecast. These forecasts were so accurate that this practice replaced the physical testing for certain types of test, reducing cost and attracting customers from competitors who had outsourced their laboratories. This created a new industry testing standard and forced the competitors to conform. Right. So, of course, based on one particular level of disruption, the other competitors also had to change their way of working. So it affected within the same industry, multiple organizations. So each of these organizations had to adopt a new way of working. Now, like I said, different attitudes, being a disruptor or responding to disruption. Most organizations do not set out to disrupt, but become disruptive because of the way they respond to other disruptive factors. What are these different aspects? They say this figure illustrates two ways in which the disruption can occur. To the left of the figure, a relatively small change in the environment has a far-reaching consequences as it impacts some aspect of all the organization. Organization that wish to remain competitive need to be equal to the challenges posed by the disruption. So a small change that happened at the ecosystem level, or a small disruption that happened at the ecosystem level, had a far-reaching impact on the organization. These small changes in the ecosystem create wide-reaching disruptions at the organizational level. Similarly, small change at the organizational level can create a wide-reaching disruption at the ecosystem level. This one here, an organization makes a change that has far-reaching consequences for the whole economy. So, like I said, the impact could always be vice versa. But where the impact is, how many industries, how many markets, if it's a single industry or single market, those factors needs to be taken into consideration. So Any change, either at the organizational level or at the ecosystem level, can always have a far-reaching impact either on the organization or on the whole economy. Second one, then we need to find the balanced strategic focus. Is it deciding on the balanced strategic focus? Organization wishing to disrupt a particular layer will find range of strategic approaches available to them. Two common categories can be customer or the market relevance and the operational excellence. Now, again, two key things that we need to remember about these strategic focuses. Customer or the market relevance, focus on understanding consumers and their requirements and providing new or unique services and products to meet those requirements. So here the focus is on the customer or the market. How quickly the market dynamic is changing, how quickly the customer requirements are changing. Whereas for operational excellence, there's a focus on helping an organization perform more efficient and cheaper products and services. Now, this is about improving the organization itself. Now, when I say the organization itself, I essentially mean the organization needs to improve their way of operating on a day-to-day basis. How well do they operate? Sir, was my voice breaking in between? Did you lose me for? No? Okay. Because I got a pop-up that unstable internet connection. That's why I asked. All right. So like I was saying that customer or the market relevance is more focused towards the customer requirements and the market dynamics that we have. And operational excellence is more focused towards how we can perform more efficiently. Furthermore, I say organizations taking customer or the market relevance approach primarily focuses on staying relevant to the customer needs and the market dynamics as they change. So like I said, this is something that we need to remember from the customer or the market relevance perspective. I say organizations focusing on customer or the market relevance as a basis for disruption will try to change the following factors. Basic customer experience through new or better products, services, or systems of engagement. Customer journey to influence how they engage with the organization. And behavior of the customers to influence the demand of the customers for a new product. This is often done by driving innovation into the market by either creating new markets or transforming the existing markets. Well, of course, we need to be more innovative. We need to drive innovation into the market either by creating new markets or transforming the existing markets. For operational excellence, organization taking the operational relevance or excellence approach use the technology in innovative ways, obtain higher levels of performance and quality with lower cost, improve productivity, reduce waste, deliver consistent quality, and reduce cost rather than reduce cost. So of course, again, operating within the organization in a more efficient and an effective manner. Internal and external. They say when crafting a digital vision, some organizations, primarily business to customer ones, looks outwards, external factors, whereas some other organizations strategize by looking inwards. So when they talk about the external focus, any external factors that are influencing the organization is what an organization can focus on. When we focus on this particular area, we call it external focus. And internal focus is the one wherein we focus on the internal factors within the organization, like the four dimensions of service management, which were organization and people, information and technology, partners and suppliers, and value streams and processes. So for external focus, this organization base their strategies on pestle factors and ask questions such as what markets do we serve? What products and services do we currently provide to the market? Are they valuable? What opportunities are there for growth or disruption? What threats do we face? What capabilities do we have that open new avenues for us in existing or the new markets? So, of course, when it comes to the external focus, we can always ask these questions, answer these questions in order to identify those external factors that can have an impact. Similarly, we can also have an internal focus wherein they say organization base their strategies on internal environmental factors and ask questions such as what do we need to do to continue doing business? What do we need to do differently? How do we manage the risk associated with each opportunity? How do we monitor and control our journey? How can we improve operational efficiencies? How can we reduce cost? And how do we get where we want to be? Get to where we want to be? Well, of course, now again, if you look at these factors, the internal ones are more focused on operational excellence and the external ones are more focused towards the customer or the market relevance. So when it comes to deciding upon a balanced approach, we need to, of course, keep our focus into one particular direction and then work with it. Now, they say all strategies must focus on customer or the market relevance as well as operational excellence. All strategies must consider both the internal and the external factors. Well, of course. Now, we cannot just keep focusing on the customer needs or the market needs or market dynamics and not focus on the operational excellence to deliver those products and services. We would not be able to deliver it efficiently till the time we improve on the operational excellence as well. Similarly, ignoring the customer or the market needs or dynamics and focusing only on the internal factors to improve the way of working again would not help because ultimately it's the customers that we have to serve. So to avoid that part or to take care of that part, we need to identify a balanced approach. Where do we need to focus more? Where do we need to focus less? Could be a possibility that my organization is already a digital organization. They use specific digital technologies which can help them. So the focus on operational excellence can always be less, but more on towards the customer or the market relevance. And it can be other way around as well. So the point here is that we need to identify or look for the balanced approach to keep our focus both on the internal factors and the external factors. Again, a balanced approach. This table summarizes the inward and the outward viewpoint with respect to customer or the market relevance and operational excellence. So for looking outwards, customer or the market relevance, considering how our customers need changing, what products and services will they need, how will they procure and use them, what opportunities are emerging, how easy will it be to do the business with the organization, and what pestle factors need to be considered. For looking inwards, considering customer or the market relevance, how do we engage with the customers? So we may need to improve the way in which we engage with the customers. How do how do customers experience the way we deliver the products and services? How do our employees and technology support the customer experience? And what will we need in order to exploit new opportunities? Similarly, for the operational excellence, when it comes to external factors, we need to look at how do other organizations perform? What technologies do they use? How much do they spend on running their business? And what pestle factors needs to be considered? For operational excellence within the organization, we need to understand what is a better way of running the business. Can we use the technology more effectively and efficiently? And how will performance need to improve over time? So again, customer and the market relevance and factors, external factors and internal factors in both the context is what we need to look at. That's how we can always go ahead and create a balanced approach or a balanced strategic focus. Then there is positioning tool for digital organizations. So strategic decision makers. So of course, for positioning tools as well, we need to identify the right approaches. So the strategic decision maker need tools to help them evaluate opportunities and decide how to position their organization in the digital world. This includes the markets and the industries that the organization will be serving, the desired level of the customer or the market relevance and operational excellence, which opportunities it will exploit for both customer or the market relevance and operational excellence, the value proposition for consumers in its targeted markets or industries, which products and services it will deliver, which business model will emerge as these decisions are made. So digital market are in a constant state of evolution and disruption. So there is currently no industry standard digital model for positioning. There are no set standards for digital positioning of the organization. Uh, uh, because we are still in the state of constant evolution, so we cannot have that standard approach and use it for a longer period. So that's why things keep changing. However, several approaches have emerged based on the analysis of successful companies. Two major approaches are the maturity models and the digital positioning and sense making. So let's see. Maturity models. They say maturity models are based on the idea that there is a set of characteristics or capabilities that increases an organization's chances of success in the digital world. Well, of course, what kind of characteristics should an organization possess in order to improve their chances or increase their chances of success? Then they say an organization that builds these characteristics and capabilities will be in a better position to succeed as a digital organization. Well, of course, when an organization can build these characteristics and capabilities, they would definitely be in a better position to be successful. There are two types of models, two types of maturity models that are prevailing. The first model focuses on characteristics of the organization, regardless of the position it wants to attain. Well, of course, we are not looking at some kind of a position that we want to achieve, but we are building the characteristics within the organization itself. The second model focuses on helping the organization to evolve from one level of disruption, usually organizational, to the next, either the market or the industry level, and then the economy level disruption or the ecosystem level disruption. Let's see. For maturity models, they said there are 4 levels of digital mastery. An example of the first type of maturity model is described in the 4 levels of digital mastery. The digital mastery model is defined here in the picture. Now, organizations are assessed based on 2 dimensions here. One is the digital capabilities, and second is the leadership capabilities. And then there are 4 quadrants. Beginners are the ones who have little experience with digital technologies and have low leadership capabilities. What kind of characteristics do we find in a beginner organization? There is limited management commitment to digital, ad hoc experimentation is what is being done, and immature digital culture. These characteristics, if we see that in the organization, they are still at the beginner level. Then there are fashionistas. These fashionistas are digitally savvy, but lack mature leadership capabilities. These organizations have no shortage of innovative ideas and solutions, which means the people of the organization, the workforce of the organization is innovative enough, is capable enough to use the technology, but the leadership commitment is really low. What kind of characteristics do we see in fashionistas? There are ad hoc digital capabilities, fragmented digital vision because of low leadership capabilities, poor coordination, and siloed digital culture. When we see these kind of characteristics in an organization, we can consider them as fashionistas or categorize them as fashionistas. Then there are conservatives. Conservatives are the ones which boast strong leadership capabilities, but have inadequate technology skills. Again, what kind of characteristics do we see? Underdeveloped digital vision, established and legacy technology capabilities, strong hierarchical governance, and they've started to invest in the digital culture. Then there are digital masters. Digital masters are the ones that enjoys best of both worlds, since they have the mature leadership capabilities and are also adept at using technology in new ways. Digital masters, the characteristics of such an organization would be overarching digital vision, cross-organizational digital programs would be running. There is measurable value from the initiatives, strong digital governance, and robust digital culture. Whenever we see these kind of characteristics in an organization, they are the ones which are digital masters. But again, this is just based on certain analysis that they have done. They have created these categories. Otherwise, this is not a standard, remember. Yeah. The second type of maturity model suggests the approach as defined here. Organizations start their digital journeys by using technology and improving the operational efficiencies. Well, of course, improving itself is what the second approach talks about. The organization will invest in the digital technology. They would start using the digital technology. They would become more efficient in terms of operating within the organization. And then reshape the consumer experience and inevitably try to redefine the industry and reframe the entire market. So from moving from the organizational level disruption, industry or the market level disruption, once they would be successful, once they would have that competitive edge over their competitors, that is when they can always go ahead and make the disruption towards industry or the market. The limits of maturity model. Maturity models are not appropriate tools for organization wishing to disrupt industries, markets, or economies. A maturity model is helpful to an organization that has already defined its desired position and want to understand how it maps other organizations that have already taken that journey. Right. So of course, how do we compare ourselves against the competitors who have already taken that journey? Then there is digital positioning and sense making. They said digital positioning models compare capabilities to opportunities and changes in the environment. Well, of course, what capabilities do we have? What are the opportunities that we are focusing on and looking at? And what are the changes in the environment that are coming up? Digital positioning goals should be designed to reflect the organization's purpose and the vision statement. It also is recommended to reevaluate the position as frequently as possible to reflect changes in the VUCA ecosystem, the highly volatile, highly uncertain, highly complex, highly ambiguous environment. In those cases, we need to go ahead and review the positioning of our organization very frequently or as frequently as possible. Now understand this. Again, just an example that they're using here for digital positioning. No questions in the exam based on this tool. Right. So they say as shown in the figure, digital positioning tool can also be used to define the position of competitors and to indicate how an organization's position is likely to change in near to medium term as it executes its stated strategies. Now, apart from my own organization, we can also go ahead and position the competitors in here. Is it depending upon the visualization techniques used, the clustering of organization in a digital positioning tool can be used to highlight the zone of competition. We can always identify who are the most important competitors that we have when we position those competitors as well. An organization may consider exiting the zone of competition as a way to ensure long-term viability. Now, understand it this way again. There are different strategic focuses. What as an organization would we like to achieve? Strategic focus A, strategic focus B, strategic focus C, and D. Positions in the center represent a mixed strategic focus. Now, you remember about the balanced strategic approach that we talked about. So if there are four different focuses that we have, the more we are towards the center, the more balanced approach is what we have. The more mixed strategic focus is what we have. If we position the organization in the corners, this represents greater affinity to one strategic focus to the detriment of others. Now, for example, I say this one is customer or the market relevance. This one is operational excellence. This one is internal focus. And this one is external focus. Right? So four different strategic objectives. Now, if my organization is a digitally mature organization, which means I've been using technology for a longer period of time, I know how to best use the technology, then I don't need to focus more on operational excellence. What I can do is I can position, for example, my organization right here, more towards the corner of strategic focus A, which is customer relevance, because the operational excellence is something that I've already achieved. I'm already mature in that particular scenario. So the more position of the organization is towards the center, the mixed is the strategic focus. The more it is towards the corner, the focus is more on that particular strategic focus to be achieved. Let's understand it based on an example. First example is an organization might assess its position based on the people-centered four pillars of digital transformation: the business transformation, focused on the organization's business model; operational transformation, focused on operating model and operational excellence; cultural transformation, focused on attitude and behavior; and market disruption or transformation, which is focused on interaction with the organization's consumers and partners. So I have these different strategic focuses here: experience transformation, business transformation, operational transformation, and cultural transformation. Now, based on the positioning that I have here, for example, let's say this is my organization's position right now, which means I'm focused a little more towards business transformation, but I more often have a balanced approach for experience, cultural, and operational transformation as well. My competitor stands here. He's more focused towards experience transformation. Then another competitor is right here. Another competitor is right here. So the pointers or the dots, they are more towards the corner. That is where the greater affinity is. That is where the greater focus is for a particular organization. Based on my position, I go ahead and create my strategy. And I set the direction. So to reposition my organization. So as of now, I stand here. But in future, I see myself right here based on the short or medium term strategies that I'm going to execute. As of now, one competitor is right here, but they want to move towards this particular position. Similarly, for each organization, you have the direction, which would be used for repositioning the overall organization. Now you see business transformation for this particular organization. This is out of the zone of competition because their major focus right now is on business transformation. That's where the greater affinity is. But based on their repositioning strategy, they are also trying to move closer. Once they move closer, that is when they would be part of my zone of competition. And what is my zone of competition as of now? This, all these organizations that we see within the circle. Now, there can always be multiple tools, multiple criterias against which we need to measure the organization. That can always be dependent upon the organization itself. So what criterias do they use to position themselves can always differ. Similarly, for this particular example, moving forward with example one, let us consider if the same organization might choose to assess itself against a different set of foci articulated in the digital strategy, such as physical presence, digital presence, use of emerging technology, and the use of industry standard tools. Now, in this case, or in this example, the strategic focus has changed, based on which the position of the organization will also change. As depicted in the figure, changing the strategic focus changes the position of the same organizations, the direction of travel for each organization, and even what cluster forms the zone of competition, right? So of course, based on these different strategic focuses that we have, the position of the organization changed and the direction of the organization also changed. And that was the module number 3. This one was interesting. Yes, absolutely. Disruption is a fundamental shift in an organization's operations caused by a new or a change internal or the external factor. There can be digital disruptions. Digital disruption occurs when the digital technology causes the fundamental shift in how any aspect of the organization's internal or external environment functions. Most organizations do not set out to disrupt, but become disruptive because of the way they respond to other disruptive factors or as a response to disruptions in their environment. Economy, industry, market disruptions are often conceived and planned by the visionary individuals and the organization. Furthermore, balanced strategic focus. Organizations wishing to disrupt a particular layer will find a range of strategic approaches available to them. Two common categories to define these approaches can be customer or the market relevance or the operational excellence. In an organization, all the strategies must focus on the customer or the market relevance as well as operational excellence. All strategies must consider both the internal and the external factors impacting the organization. Positioning tool for digital organizations. They say there is currently no industry standard digital model for positioning. However, several approaches have emerged based on the analysis of successful companies. Two major approaches are the maturity models and the digital positioning models. Then we have the first assignment. Now, I want your input. There is one more chapter that we have to do. Either we can do that chapter and then come to the assignment, or if you want to take this assignment as a homework, you can take it as well. Mm-hmm. Okay. No worries. So we can move forward with the next chapter. So let's do a knowledge check first quickly. An organization's IT department is planning to make significant investment in the new testing technology that will enable them to provide much more reliable services. What does the situation describe? IT department. Significant investment is there, but Well, it's IT transformation. Now I'll tell you why. When we talk about significant investment being made in an IT department alone, they are nowhere talking about the organizational goals and objectives. And the underlined word there was significant improvement to the achievement of the objectives of the organization. That is what digital transformation is. Here it is IT transformation. Mhm. Well, you remember when we were talking about the IT strategy and the digital strategy, we did talk about the enablement projects that the IT can run. Of course, it needs to be in alignment with the overall business strategy for sure. But since they are not defining it specifically in the question, so we need to consider this as an IT transformation. So they may be running a project which would help them to improve the new testing technology, or the new testing technology is what they want to implement, that can help them to deliver or provide more reliable services to the customers. So again, like I said, we need to remember these keywords really in a focused way. Significant investment, significant improvement. If they would have said making a significant investment in the new testing technology, which would contribute to the achievement of the organizational objectives, then digital transformation would have been correct. Okay, you're welcome. What does a digital organization need to focus on to create and maintain a competitive advantage? Okay. Well, B, it is. Absolutely. When we are going to deliver innovative new products and services, we can always remain competitive and gain the competitive edge as well. Which value chain activity ensures people understand the organization's vision? This question is coming from foundation level. Well, of course, plan it is. Then there is, where are we now doing the baseline assessment, the readiness assessment. Before we begin with this one, do you need a short break? All right. Sure. Sure. So let's break for 20 minutes and come back. Thank you.